We're a bit late, but I think it's finally time to talk about Rhulani Mokwena leaving MC of Algiers and signing with Ittihad Tripoli. If you don't know, this is the African Five-a-Side podcast. I'm your host, Maher Mzahi, and this is brought to you by africasacountry.com. So, uh, about a few, maybe coming up on 2 weeks ago now, uh, seismic shock in the Algerian league that Rhulani Mokwena decided to leave MC of Algiers and sign with the current Libyan league leaders, at least in their group, Ittihad Tripoli. Now, this was a shock for a few different reasons. Number one, Rhulani Mokwena was, I think, overall doing a good job at MC of Algiers, and I think everybody would say that. If we look at his record, 33 matches played, 19 victories, 8 draws, only 6 losses, and this is in total across all competitions. 39 goals for, 19 goals against, almost 2 points per match played. He won the Algerian Super Cup against their arch rivals, USM of Algiers. They were eliminated in the CAF Champions League group stages, which was a little bit of regression from last year when they qualified to the quarterfinals. And at the moment in which he left, MC of Algiers were ahead in the Algerian league and by a long margin. They were leading, and despite the fact that they had actually matches to go, like they were 3 or 4 matches behind in the schedule, and they were still leading. So I think if they win all the matches they have in hand, it's almost like a 14-point cushion that he leaves them with. So yeah, a little bit of a disappointment in the CAF Champions League, but it's time to break down, I think, some of the positive things he did, some of the negative things he did, what our reaction has been in Algeria, and then ask the question about why did he go, why Al-Ittihad, and is this a good decision, from our perspective. So some of the positive things that Rhulani Mokwena did during his time at MC of Algiers, first of all, the fact that he's bold. And I think this is something that is going to be a credit to him wherever he goes. Nobody can take away the fact that he introduces new ideas, creative ideas. He isn't afraid to stick to his principles, even in places where the rest of the footballing landscape hasn't really caught up to it. So if you think about, again, something as stupid as that we talk about on the podcast, but wearing goggles in training to sort of inhibit eyesight, something called deferential learning that he says, when you take away one sense, the other senses, they sharpen. Something like that. Online people were laughing. They're saying the coach has his players playing in swimming goggles or training in swimming goggles. He says, a few weeks later, the Italian national team were doing the same thing. So he isn't afraid to try things. Whereas, and he was operating in a landscape in Algeria where most of the analysis is, why did we play this player? Why didn't we play this player? This coach didn't have his team ready to perform in this way. He should have taken out this player and included this player. It's very rudimentary, very elementary, very much stuck in the 1970s and the 1980s. He should have played this formation, not that formation, etc. So I think just the fact that Rhulani was there and he was introducing the players to these different concepts and these different notions, I think it's godsend, honestly. Like, players now know what else is out there, even on the African continent, amongst African coaches. Again, his record in the league was very, very impressive, and I think that's something that he'll take to the bank, and he can always rely on that, because despite the fact that MC of Algiers were champions in the previous 2 years, and I think they were expecting to be champions this year, nobody expected them to have that kind of cushion by the time he left. And then, winning the Algerian Super Cup was a great experience, I'm sure, for him. The celebrations were crazy in the neighborhood of Bab El Oued, where MC of Algiers have, the heart of their support. Winning against the arch rivals, USM of Algiers, must have been a really special night for him and his players. The negative is obviously the CAF Champions League, particularly the away matches in the CAF Champions League. Particularly the fact that they came up against El Hilal and Saint-Eloi Lupopo, and they conceded very late goals in those matches, to either give up a draw or give up a draw, and they ended up losing both of those matches. Late mistakes from sometimes senior players. Ayoub Ghazala coming in on the back of a player from Lupopo and giving up a penalty. Like, that's something that I've seen Rhulani teams do in the past. Again, you talk about Mamelodi Sundowns against Wydad in the semifinals in 2023. Own goal by Mvala, like a senior experienced player making a very poor decision-making attempt, or action. And I asked him that's what I asked him in the podcast, like, how much of responsibility is on your shoulders for that? That's something that I think we have to continue monitoring. But the fact that Even if you listen to him, he says after the Mamelodi Sundowns match in the CAF Champions League group stages, he says, we didn't lose, or we were not eliminated tonight. We were eliminated in the other away matches when they came up with those late goals. The other negative that I'm going to say, and this is not necessarily coming from me, but this is how other fans, analysts saw him at times. If they're going to point one negative at him, they're going to say he's too much of a philosopher, meaning that sometimes they feel like he tries to be too complicated when there are easy solutions. Maybe one of the biggest things they mean by this is the fact that he'll try to play, for example, some players. He'll identify a strength in a player, and then he'll make that player switch positions because he sees a strength that he can exploit that'll fit his principles of play better. Whereas this player has, throughout the entire career, played in one position. Now all of a sudden they're playing in a different position. On one hand, at times it was a joy to watch him do that because a player like, again, Al-Ittihad playing, in that first line of build-up play, I think was really, really nice on the eye. On the other hand, I think it took away some time. Like a player like Zinedine Farhat has played his entire career as a right winger, right wing back, or right back, and all of a sudden he's playing as like a striker or playing on the left flank at times. And I didn't really see. I thought he'd actually played really well, but I've seen Zinedine Farhat perform better in his own position. Again, if he played on the right wing, would he have seen the old Zinedine Farhat? Not necessarily, but that's something that it's just an easy criticism. It's like, why doesn't he play the players in their positions? Why does he stick? This is another criticism. Why does he stick to the 4-4-2 diamond? And coach will say it's not a 4-4-2 diamond. It's, but in Algeria, that's what they saw. They saw a 4-4-2 diamond. Why doesn't he play a 4-3-3? A more classic formation, players in their more classic positions. And they felt like he was, again, being too philosophical at times. The one thing I think where they might have a point here is like, if a player is playing, let's take Al-Ittihad. His entire career has been playing as an attacking midfielder. You play him as a defensive midfielder. In pressure situations, I just wonder about their instincts, these players' instincts. Their instincts might always revert to how they've been playing the game over the last 10 years. So if you think about the Mamelodi Sundowns match, the first goal comes from the fact that Al-Ittihad thinks he has so much time. And when he's in those advanced positions, it's not the end of the world if you lose possession of the ball, right? Because there's 2 or 3 lines of defenders behind you that can help you regain possession. But if you're a defensive midfielder, if you're number 6 and you lose the ball, you're giving up a clear goal scoring opportunity. And that's how Mamelodi Sundowns scored their first goal in that 6th match day. So I can think, sometimes I do think that criticism can be valid at times, but I'm just saying this is one of the reasons why people criticized him. Overall, though, I would say he left a positive image. Now, the reaction. I think overall people are sad that he left, and they were a little bit angry, not at him necessarily, but the fact that this year in the Algerian league, they put in place provision where a coach can pay, I think this is how it goes, 2 months of their own salary, and they can be released from their contract. And I think the club can do something similar. A club can pay a coach like 3 months advance, and they can rescind the contract either way. So the league made it so that you can rescind contracts unilaterally. And I think they did this because they didn't want coaches like, signing 3-year contracts that are concrete, and then, if you fire them, you have to pay them the entire salary at FIFA. So I think Rhulani took advantage of that, and he has every right to. So I think people were more angry at the federation and the league than the coach himself. That's number one. I personally would have loved to seen him put in one more year with, one more off season, a couple more transfer windows, and really have a good go at the CAF Champions League. That said, he had 2 transfer windows with MC Algiers. And on both occasions, we didn't really feel like he was given the latitude or the means to conduct those transfer windows as he would have liked. We know in the summer that he probably wanted a couple of more players. In the winter, everybody was saying that he needed more players. In the winter, he got 1 player. Shano Bukholda was a good player, but probably needed a lot more. And same thing in the summer. I mean, if you're trying to compete with Al-Ahli, if you're trying to compete with Mamelodi Sundowns, if you're trying to compete with Pyramids FC, you need to heavily, massively invest in your squad. And coach said, he didn't say that they didn't buy me the players I wanted to, but he did say, also point to the fact that there were restrictions, again, from the league, saying you cannot buy like an international that's, I don't know, over the age of 28 years old, abroad on a big contract. The Algerian league restricts clubs from doing that because they see it as a waste of money. Um, so yeah, coach said, that he is somebody that likes to fulfill his contract. He signed a 2-year contract. And I do think he likes to stick to his word. But that said, did MC Alger stick to their word? Did they back him as they maybe said they would have backed him when they signed him? I think that's probably where he felt like, okay, you guys didn't stick to your word, so I'm not sticking to my contract either. And that's probably why he rescinded it unilaterally. I think if he was fully backed in both transfer windows, and this is solely my interpretation, I don't think that maybe Rhulani would have left this early. Now, another reason why he left, I think, personally, is salary. And I know he said, I think on Big Rap Show, that he didn't leave for the money. He said, I went to Wydad Casablanca where there was no money for several months. I don't think that he left for money. I agree with him there, because if you say he leaves for money, that's the principal reason why he left. That said, like, I don't think that it's not a contributing factor either. Every single one of us wants to be paid, and paid well, at their job. And I think the fact that he's going to be probably doubling his salary, some people are saying even more, is something that is definitely, again, an attractive thing. For MC Algiers, I saw reports saying anywhere that he was making between 50 and 70,000. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between. Maybe it was 50 for him, 70 for his staff. For him and his staff. With Ittihad Tripoli, I've seen anywhere from 100,000 per month to 140,000 per month. So if you take those ranges, it's pretty much going to be doubling his salary and hiring a bunch more players that he wants as well. Or sorry, a bunch more coaches that he wants for as well. So this is definitely important. But I think the biggest reason I think that drove him to go to Ittihad Tripoli is I think they told him, look, you're going to have the carte blanche that you want. You're going to be in complete control. And that's probably what he didn't have at MC Algiers. MC Algiers is a club that's very structured. It's owned by the Algerian state. You have to fight them to bring into effect any change, to use like programs like maybe like Y Scout or Transfer Room. And it's like, okay, I'm hamstrung here. I'm trying to fight and I have one arm tied behind my back. Whereas Ittihad Tripoli and Libyan football right now, at the moment, money is flowing nonstop. And so I think the most attractive thing for him is they probably told him, look, whatever you want, you got it. Just let us know. You have a blank check. We just want to be at the top of African football. Ittihad Tripoli is the most successful club in Libyan football, with the most amount of Libyan Premier League titles. And they have, an interesting squad, full of African players from all over the place, from the north to the south to the east to the west. They have 2 players that we know Coach Rhulani really, really loves and at times has been really close to. So Tembin Kosi Lorch, of course, the South African that was previously at Wydad, that Coach Rhulani brought to Wydad. And Stefan Aziz Ki, also previously at Wydad, that Coach Rhulani, I think, had a good hand in bringing to Wydad, although he didn't actually get a chance to coach him. So Aziz Ki and Lorch, I mean, that's already a big bonus for him. I think that's, again, one of the reasons that he probably wanted to go there as well, is he has players that he really highly admires, that he thinks are going to help him do what he needs to do. But ultimately, despite all of that, despite the increase in salary, despite the players that he loves, I don't think this is a good move personally. And again, if you listen to the podcast that we did with Coach Mokwena, one of the things that challenged him on was his career moves. I didn't understand really at the time leaving Sundown. I mean, I understood leaving Sundowns. Yeah. I didn't understand going to Wydad at that particular time. MC of Algiers, I felt uneasy about, simply because of the fact that, and he's the next one in line, no coaches have stayed more than 2 years at MC of Algiers. Now he's going to say that I had a great time at Wydad, I had a great time at MC of Algiers, I learned so much. All of that is true. But personally, I think if you're building your career in a way that, again, it's unfair because I'm trying to live vicariously through the coach, but I'm trying to say, like, okay, this guy's going to go to Europe. He's the one that's going to break the glass ceiling. It has to be building blocks. You have to work your way up, right? And you go from Sundowns. For me, the only way up is Pyramids or Al-Ahli, where you're playing in the intercontinental competitions, the Club World Cup, so on and so forth. Now, I know Wydad had that chance, but he didn't ultimately get there. And then you work way up and up and up, maybe somewhere in the Gulf, and up 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 until you break the glass ceiling. Sundowns is up here. I'm sorry, but Wydad is a step below. MC of Algiers is a step below, and Ittihad Tripoli is a step below. In the history of African football, if you talk about the prestige of these clubs, or the recent success of these clubs, in my opinion, he's just been taking downward steps in terms of the clubs that he's been coaching, and that doesn't bode well, in my opinion. We see Coach Pizzo, for example, when he leaves Al Ahli and he goes to Saudi Arabia. Al Ahli was bigger than Al Abha, even if maybe he was making more money in Saudi Arabia. But after you leave Al Abha, then it's like, okay, now what? Like, are people going to be impressed if you win the Libyan Premier League with Ittihad Tripoli? I don't think so. Are people even going to hear of the fact that you won the league with Ittihad Tripoli? Maybe. If you don't win the league with Ittihad Tripoli, are people going to judge you for that? Maybe. What if you don't qualify for the CAF Champions League with Ittihad Tripoli? Is that a problem? Yeah. Uh, you understand what I'm saying? Like, these are the reasons why at times I don't really understand his career choices. They're not career choices that I would have made, but I'm a journalist. He's the coach. He's the one that put in all the legwork. It's none of my business at the end of the day. But I'm just saying, like, from my perspective of where I could see him going, I don't think he's making the right career choices. Again, it's very presumptuous of me to say that, like, who the hell am I? Just saying, though, like, just again, it's unfair, but the expectations I had, I thought he would be making different career choices. And again, he can absolutely prove me wrong. Maybe he wins everything. He wins the CAF Champions League with Ittihad Tripoli. How historic would that be? And then that could be, make headlines all around the world. Maybe he gets a better job. Who knows? The last thing I would say is that although you are technically getting more control with Ittihad Tripoli, because maybe they're going to sign blank checks and they're going to say, whatever you want, you got it. Just help us win. There's more instability in Libya than in Algeria or even in Morocco. Like, this is obviously a country that has been struggling with, at times, what's almost been a civil war. This is a country that at times which has almost been split into East and West. This is a country which, I think from between 2014 and 2022, the league itself was interrupted every other year. I think it was 15, 17, 19, 21. Every other year, the league was interrupted. And so even though you have more control, I think there's less stability. Now, we have to all acknowledge that over the last 2-3 years, again, there's been a huge amount of money invested into Libyan football. The stadiums have been renovated. There has been an uninterrupted league play. But the country of Libya itself is not really out of trouble yet. I mean, this is not my opinion. This is the opinion of international experts and analysts. So things could happen at any moment, at any time. Also, I'm very skeptical of owners that, like just splash the cash, like this. And again, I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on Ittihad Tripoli, but I'm skeptical of even in Saudi Arabia, even in the UAE, everywhere in the world, usually we've seen this happen with like Anji Mahashkala in Russia. Sometimes owners will, the money will be flowing. They'll spend a bunch of cash, and then just as erratic as they can be in the increase of cash flow, it can be the same way in that they decide, okay, you know what, one day they'll wake up and look, I'm sick of this, I'm tired of this, and I don't want to do it anymore. It can be very, very fickle. Aliou Cisse is the coach of the Libyan national team. He's been without a salary for 6 to 8 months. Now, I know that's not to do with Ittihad Tripoli, but I don't know if you guys understand what I mean. Like, the stability of being at MC of Algiers. MC of Algiers, again, is very bureaucratic. It's very difficult to get them to change. But with MC of Algiers, you will know every single time the end of the month hits, your salary is going to be in your bank account, because it's owned by the state, and the state has money, and the state, it's the oil and gas company. So there's a stability to it, and even when they want to fire you, they're not going to fire you that easily. So yeah, as much as, again, I understand the want, the need for carte blanche and really implementing a project in your own way. If unforeseen circumstances happen, and that can happen anywhere, it can happen in Algeria, God forbid, it could happen in Egypt, it can happen in South Africa. No country, as you see in the state of the world today, is immune from, chaos and war and things like that. But again, if you look at the last 10 years, I'm not really sure that this is a stable job for Coach Mokwena. And usually to implement a project, you're not going to do it in 6 months. It takes a little bit of time. So yeah, I just hope he doesn't disappear from the radar. I hope he gets the backing that he says he's going to get, or that the club probably says he's going to get. And I hope he can do something with Ittihad Tripoli. I'll definitely be keeping an eye on it, but I'm not going to be following him week in, week out. Like I was at MC Algiers, like many people were at Wydad Casablanca. And like the entire content was with Mamelodi Sundowns. So ultimately, those are my thoughts. I always try to be as truthful, respectful as possible when it comes to this coach or any other coach. I'm not going to say, I'm not, just because I speak with him at times on occasion, I'm not going to pull any punches if I think he's making a wrong decision. As always, I'm going to try to be as respectful as possible because he's always been very courteous, very gracious with his time. Um, Overall, I don't think it's the greatest move, but I'm very, very curious to see how the next steps will evolve. Just the final thing that we're going to do is touch on maybe the fact that the airport episode. Um, what you have to understand is that Algeria is a country that has very archaic banking system. And this is a problem. I think everybody in African football, they know about this. When I interviewed Coach Fadlu Davids, I kind of joked with him. I said, "Hey, come to Algeria, coach." And he said, "Yeah, but I heard like it's not easy to take money out of the country." And it's true. It's not easy to take foreign currency out of Algeria, even if you have, a contract that justifies that, you made uh X amount of money, Y amount of money. There's different ways of doing it. Algeria is a country like that. There's different ways of doing everything that are safe, that are maybe not necessarily legal, but that everybody does it that way anyway. So it's not a big deal. Um, One thing you cannot do in any country in the world, I think internationally now, is cross borders with more than $10,000 undeclared. You're going to get that money confiscated anywhere in the world. And that's really, really unfortunate. That I think what was reported was $16,000 um, undeclared, and that was eventually confiscated. He was also given a fine of 50,000 dinars, which is, I think, like $200. It's a slap on the wrist, and a 2-month suspended prison sentence. So he's not going to be in Algeria anyway. So these 2 months are going to pass up, and it's like being on probation. But this is one of those things again. If he like just called me like, "Hey, how do I move money?" Or he asked any Algerian, they could have given him a few steps, so easier ways to move money than to physically try and take it out of the country. He's not the first, by the way, person to struggle with this. Several players and coaches have been caught doing the same thing. I can think of one off the top of my head that was caught with 25,000 euros trying to leave the country. A football player earning his keep, but ultimately, it's not as easy as going to the bank and asking them to transfer this kind of money because, again, the banking system is very archaic, and if you don't live in Algeria, it's not really easy to understand. So, the first thing I would say is don't judge the fact that he tried to take it out. I mean, physically, because again, the banking system is crazy. Number one, and it's very difficult to move foreign currency out of the country. Um, he should have probably asked for help. Any Algerian could have helped him really, moving that money. But ultimately, like once you get caught doing that, that money being confiscated again. This is basic law around the world. You don't declare money. It could happen in Canada, the USA, South Africa, UAE, whatever the case may be. You don't declare an amount over $10,000, you're going to get it confiscated when crossing the border. So it was an unfortunate incident. On one hand, I'm saying, well, he's going to be making a lot more money in Libya. So, uh, a drop in the ocean. At the same time, $16,000 is $60,000. I don't care if you're Bill Gates. That's a lot of money. So I feel bad for him, but hopefully a lesson learned there. All right, y'all. Speak to you soon, 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 previewing the international break. Speak to y'all soon. Peace.